Wholeness means to me being in a state of joy.
Wholeness means feeling complete, owning my authentic gifts.
Wholeness is really connected. Everything is connected to everything.
Wholeness is where we have access to all parts of ourselves.
Today's cards. So today's cards, there's a deck called Messages from God or from heaven to women, right, to women.
Love it.
So I actually picked 3 cards because, well, 3 of them came out and I was like, all of those fit. I'm not going to narrow it down. So first card. If you want to be somebody really special, just be you.
Oh,
Right? You need that.
cool.
The other one, thank you for always making me smile.
Oh,
And I just think, what, I don't know if women do that very well, if they think that the divine or the heavens just adore them, right? Adore them.
yeah.
Okay, this one is, a hug is worth 1,000 words. A woman like you is worth far more.
Cool.
So anyway, those are our cards for today. And today we're going to talk a little bit about mom stuff, and specifically a little bit of, like, I loved when you said when we were planning our meeting, like, mom bods. We need to talk about mom bods. Because I think it's something that is kind of universal for people that are moms, right? Your body changes once you have a mom.
Yeah, my body's gone from, I would say, a size 4 to a size 22.
Yeah.
And it's somewhere in between. My
Yeah.
husband has never changed. Not once.
Right.
That's a lot, Chloe.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it changes and then it changes again and then it changes again and then it changes again. Like,
Yes.
it's, and just that change is never fun, right? Change is never great. But we're doing this episode, we're going to release it right after Mother's Day. And so let's just think about what Mother's Day was like. What do you like about Mother's Day? What do you not like about Mother's Day? What do you think about it?
I had a talk with a friend the other day, and I worked with this woman who would always be like, "Oh, I hate Mother's Day. I just feel so guilty all the time." And I wasn't a mom at the time, and I was like trying to take that in, thinking that's really interesting, thinking about maybe my mom. And then as I've gotten to be a mom, it doesn't bother me. I don't really feel, I mean, I feel guilt, for other reasons and other days,
Right.
but not necessarily that day. And I was like, I wonder, the thought came to me is, do you think that that is like something that she finds value in, is like saying like, I can't appreciate this day. I have to feel guilty.
I wonder, because guilt is a kind of an interesting idea, because is it guilt that she's getting the attention?
That's what I was wondering, if like she
Yeah.
feels like, oh, you can't like me, or
Mhm.
you can't have, I can't shine light in myself, or I don't know. I've thought about that a lot as Mother Day comes around every year, and I think about when she says that, because she was a great mom from what I could see and really gave a lot to her kids. But to say that she felt guilty when she had to sit at church and listen to people talk about moms and how wonderful they were, she didn't feel like she was in that group. But was it self-deprecation? I don't know. Was
Yeah.
it like a pious thing, like, oh, if I say that I feel guilty about all these things in motherhood, does that make me better?
Mm.
Am I explaining that well?
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of people. I mean, my new grandbaby's mom, she said the other day, she's like, I deleted TikTok from my phone because, of course, the algorithm is giving her all this baby stuff. And she's like, let's go on. Here's my day with my 4-month-old, and they're like playing all these things and they're doing all these things. And she's like, I, she's like, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible mom. And I'm like, she's filmed that could be filmed in 5 minutes. You know what I
True.
mean? Like, let's do this, And I said, give yourself a break, but we do compare for sure. Women, it's like, that's the bigger curse, is we compare. And I think
Right.
if we could kind of stop that habit, our lives would change, I think, tremendously. I think. Do
Yeah.
you have traditions for Mother's Day?
No. Do
Not
you?
really. Well, okay. So one thing, this is really interesting. I love Mother's Day because me and my husband share a birthday. And
Okay.
so think about everybody goes, oh, how sweet. Because we were born on the same day in the same hospital, like exactly the same year. Like
So crazy.
we were in the little nursery together. And it sounds like so romantic until it's your birthday. And then it's like, happy birthday, you're so wonderful. And they're like, oh yeah, here. Like, I mean, we did that in the beginning where, I would buy him maybe more of a gift of like convenience or whatever. And he would buy maybe a romantic type gift, and then they're like, wah, wah, or it's like, who's going to make your birthday cake or who cooks your favorite dinner? Like you don't want to, that just doesn't work. So we just kind of do things together. So for me, Mother's Day's become really important because that's my day. You know what I mean? That can be like my day. And so I talk about guilt, like I feel like that's the one day where like, how most women are, how are you? Oh, what do you want to do? Oh, well, whatever you want, like not for me, not on Mother's Day, man. I just do what I want. I have no guilt. I give a menu. Here's what I want to eat. Here's why I want to eat it. Let's
Oh.
go. It's like a prized day for me. And we even had this discussion this year because, we have a grandbaby. And so, and that's the thing I think is hard is that I was talking to my husband. I said, here's the thing. I don't want, my daughter-in-law I want her to really feel the day and receive the day. I don't want her to think about me. You know what I mean? I don't want her to, because I feel like that's what's always hard is it's like everybody's got to honor another mother. And I think it's a day it's supposed to be a day to receive, I think. And so we made this new rule in our house that the men are in charge of Mother's Day. So my husband's going to make sure I can give him ideas, but he's the one that picks up the gift. He's the one, he's taking care of, and my son-in-law or my son, hello, they're taking care of Mother's Day so that actually both of us just receive and we don't have to think about it, and we can also promise that we have to be kind of, you know, truthful about what we want because it's making it easier on them. Do I want a surprise? No. Or here's what I want. Go get it. Depending on, people have different preferences. I am like a freak of, I don't like a surprise. I like to know and anticipate, you know,
Okay.
I,
Okay.
so I tell them exactly what I want. This is what I want, and so
Yeah.
and so whatever they want, but the guys are going to take care of it. And I think I'm excited for that because, my mom's gone, so I don't have to, worry about her. And it's just
Mhm.
nice to say, okay, let's have a day so that everybody receives and nobody has to take care, at least if you're a mom, nobody has to take
Okay.
care.
Yeah, that's
So
smart. I like it. So how soon or how far out does this conversation take place of like what you want to happen? Is it like a planning meeting or is it just like things in
yeah.
passing?
Um, Usually my husband will be like, so what are you thinking about for Mother's Day?
Okay.
Or I might say, hey, this is what I want for Mother's Day this year. So it's a little bit in advance, like
Okay.
in fact, I got a text like, hey, we're having dinner up here on Mother's Day. And I was like, well, we've got that planned. Like that's done. We've figured it out. We are not a last minute people when it comes to events like this because I just like to anticipate. So then therefore I figure it out, like what I want to eat, things like that. So
Cool.
good. It's good. It's good. So yes. So, but there are people, a lot of people, I think that Mother's Day is, they probably have like a trauma response to Mother's Day a little bit because,
So,
they've lost a loved one or it brings up memories of the unable to have children when you want or all those things, all those things, or even your friend who it brings up, I'm not as good enough, I don't deserve praise or, there's a lot of mixed emotions there. And so I think it's starting to get in people's minds that not everybody is on the same page there. In fact, I get an email every year from my grocery store that says, hey, it's like a few weeks ahead. Hey, if you want to opt out of Mother's Day, like emails and suggestions, just click here. And I think that's really kind, just to
I
ask,
do.
you
I do too. I
know.
think I've seen that for Father's Day too. But yeah.
Yeah. Like we don't need to bother you. I think that to me, that's just a step forward because it just shows that different people have different experiences, different people are in different places, and it doesn't hurt to just not shove it down, not shove it down their throats or to allow them to be different, you know.
Especially where sometimes I think it can be more of a commercial idea sometimes than to really dial that back and say like, hey, we care more about our customers than money from cards or something. I don't know.
Right. Totally. Yeah,
That's cool.
I do. I know. I thought it was really cool. I really appreciate it. So, but back to this mom idea. So to move into this
Mom bod.
the mom bod, right? This mom bod. It's true that moms, motherhood changes. We talked about how much it changes, but it changes emotionally over time. Think about the emotions you had when you were first having children. I remember bringing home our first baby from the hospital, and he was the one I probably had the most teary with him. I probably was more teary with him. And I remember driving home from the hospital, and we had, you didn't stay too long in the hospital, but it felt like an eternity. Like I felt like I remember saying, if I could go into like a blank room and just like try to comprehend what just happened, like it was just really kind of overwhelming for me, and I'd get teary. And in fact, when we were driving home from the hospital, I looked up and the gas price, I don't know why I remembered this, but the gas price was the same as when I went in. And it was like, everything hasn't changed. And I just started crying because I'm like, the gas price is still the same. Okay. Because we lived kind of like we drove right past a gas station to get home. And so it was something I saw all the time. And I was just
Yeah.
like, okay, maybe the world isn't upside down a little bit, but it was emotional. That was an emotional, really emotional birth for me, that first one.
That's
And then,
awesome.
yeah. And
I
then,
mean, awesome. I don't know, but
yeah,
very eye-opening because it is
mhm,
a big deal. Childbirth's a
big
big
deal.
deal.
It's a big deal. And then I had the emotions of I had three boys, and then I was pregnant again, and I had those emotions like, is it going to be another boy? Not that I wouldn't have loved the other boy, but it was more and like anticipating and anxious about people's like response because you can see it in their eyes when they're like, "Oh, did you wish you had a girl?" I mean, you'd be surprised, or you're hoping this one's a girl, like maybe this time it'll be a girl, or like then, oh, we're having another boy. Oh, like it's just they don't have to say it. You can see it in their eyes. And my heart would just break because it had kind of happened with boy three, a little bit. So I was like, oh man, boy four, I was so anxious. I was so anxious about that idea of having, and that was just me. And it was hard. That was just a hard time. I didn't sleep much for those first couple of months. And in fact, funny story, this is one of those moments where I woke up at 5 in the morning, and it woke me out of bed. It was like I knew this was going to be a girl. And
Hmm.
I was so nervous because I was like, if I'm wrong, you know what I mean? Like I was so nervous. And so I was pacing around the house at like 5 in the morning, like I feel like this so strongly, but like if I'm wrong, so I thought, okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to buy like a really expensive girl's outfit. Money was a little tighter at that time in our lives. So I'm going to buy an expensive outfit. And so that I get that feeling of, ooh, I better not. You know what I mean? Like, I better not. I better wait
Yes.
because I hadn't found out yet. And I walked home with that bag, and I was telling my husband, I'm like, I had this major impression. In fact, my journal tells the story a little more in detail, but just like this is a girl, like this is a girl. And he's like, okay, then it's gonna be, then I bet it's a girl, I believe it's a girl. And it was just so there was that mixed into it because I was, that was like this intuition was starting to turn on a little more, at
Hmm.
that point. And so that was interesting. That was a different kind of emotion there. So what,
Yeah.
and then you have them going off and moving into college and becoming an angry teenager and being, like there's so many emotions in that shift over time. And I'm not going to lie, those emotions are probably part of what shifts my body, you know.
The Having being a mom?
Yeah, my mom bod, like all those mom emotions have a lot to do with my mom bod. There's lots of changes, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. I was taking a walk this morning and thinking about what we were going to talk about today and about the whole idea of like a bod, our body. And like, have you ever seen a house of a hoarder, just like from the outside, that you've known, like this is a hoarder?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we had this one in our neighborhood, and and I remember telling my husband and telling my neighbors, like, that house looks sad. It
Mhm.
just drooped, and there was nothing really outside was hoardery, and I knew the person that lived there, like, he had trash bags in his car, like, filled up. His mailbox was full. So there were some clues, but, the houses all around it were the same age, and they looked way different. Like, the house that was a hoarder house, like, it just looked so sad. And I
Mm.
was thinking about, like, our body is like our house for all of the parts, right? Like we've got our emotions are inside of our body, and our spirit resides in
Right.
here. Our brain is inside of our body, and what an important part our body plays in the whole of who we are. Like really, it's the house. And when you're not taking care of those things, like when those emotions get too big, when you have those babies, like the body
Mm.
suffers. And just thinking about being a mom and being in charge of other beings takes a toll, I would say. And I don't know if that has to play in all the time with how our body changes all the time. Like I think it's way more than just birth. Like there's a lot going on.
No doubt.
Yeah, so I was just thinking a little bit about our house and the importance that it plays.
Hmm. Yeah, totally. And, you know, yeah, I love what you said. It's true. All of those do reside in the body. They do. We feel sensations, and those sensations have everything to do with our thinking and our feeling and our connection, right? So that's a really good point. And so when did you like first, okay, so we're going to pause for a minute and talk a little bit about something different because in me and your state of mind or time of life, menopause, like we have the
Yes.
ultimate mom body, like that the whole system of women is starting, the whole system that makes women who they are is in flux, in change,
Mhm.
right? Dang.
Yes.
And so yeah. What tell me about your thoughts on that?
Well, so my daughter is 10 and a girl in her class started her period. And it was like a really big deal. Like they had so many questions, like everyone was talking about it. It hurt that little girl's feelings a little bit because all of them were just like, whoa, this is huge. This is huge for us. And so we've been studying about puberty and like studying, like we read this book every night. We have discussions about it. Like she's so curious. And it's a full book. There is a full book on what happens to your body when you're ramping up, right? All those hormones and everything like that. Is there a book for me right now? No. Was there a book when I got pregnant and my body was like whacked out and things were coming out different places that I had no idea?
Right.
I like there's no book. And I feel like we've done ourselves a real disservice as women to just we stop talking. We stop having those conversations. We stop the teaching process.
Mm,
Did you watch that episode of Call the Midwife when they had the exercise class?
yes, yes.
Yeah, I remember like that just kind of turned a light on inside of my brain. So this woman was in the exercise class and she like bolts out of there and the teacher's worried about her. So she goes and she's in the bathroom and she's like asking the lady, "Are you okay?" And she's just like, "I'm fine." And she's like, "I wet myself." And the girl's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, what are what can we do to help?" Because she was a nurse. And she's like, "I don't know. My mom said I think they would just shove some flannel up there to keep it from, happening." And the nurse was like, "I can't believe that we aren't doing more for you. Like, why haven't you told the doctor?" And she's like, "Well, we don't really talk about stuff like this. This isn't
Hmm.
a part of life that anybody cares about."
Yeah.
And I think that happens so many times in our lives past that puberty part. We've done a really, really good job of that part. But the rest of it is like this huge mystery.
Hmm. Yep. 100%. 100%. I was, it's been in the last maybe year and a half that it was even in my stream of consciousness. And then once I started to research or look or even experience, I was shocked at, first of all, everybody says something different. There's
Yes.
something different. And then it wasn't until, like, honestly, um, it was an intuitive choice to go and get myself checked out by like a specialist, not just my OB, but like a place that specializes in menopause. It's not your regular doctor, like it's a full on a privilege, to be able to go there. But when she started talking to me about, like, just these symptoms, like, do you have headaches? Do you have, how's your sleep patterns? And I was just like, what? I had no idea because I just kind of thought, because it's true, my sleep patterns have been like just up and down, up and down. And literally, she's like, yeah, that's the chemical hormones in your body moving up and down, that's that's a thing. I had no idea. And all the symptoms, I heard hot flashes. That's it. Hot flashes in menopause, and then your period starts to droop off. That's
Do
it.
you remember, do you remember the episode of The Cosby Show? Did you watch The Cosby Show? I'm sure you
Yeah.
did.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
Like I don't remember what preceded it, but the kids were all kind of teasing their mom about, or they were nervous that she was gonna have like a hot flash and have like these menopause symptoms and be crazy. And I just remember her like trying to tease them and like freaking out and be like, "Oh, I'm so hot," and like sticking her head in the freezer, and all the kids were like, "Ah." That's all I knew about menopause. That's it. The Cosby
Right,
Show, sticking her head in the freezer. That's it.
right, right, right. My mom she had some issues. So she had had a hysterectomy long, before she went into menopause. And so she never had any of the symptoms, and it was just,
Wow.
although I do remember I had a friend and we were like, teenagers, and her dad like had said something like, we're just gonna have to survive this next little while. Your mom's going through menopause. Like she's, it was this idea like she's crazy. Like,
So sad.
I know. And it was like, what? And of course, in my mind, I think I was like, oh, well, that's far, far away.
Hmm.
Or that's everyone else. And so I'm really grateful that this conversation is starting to happen with people. I know Oprah did a big, kind of a big, I don't know what she does on her lives, but you can see it on YouTube. She interviewed different doctors about things. And in fact, the other day I just saw a, so background story, and about the early 2000s was the first time they did a study on women and hormone replacement therapy.
Mm.
The first time that they started to decipher for women and in medical trials was in the like 2010s. So like that's why we
Oh
haven't
my
had the
gosh.
conversation. That's why we haven't had the conversation. But in like the early 2000s, they just took all these women and they did a study on how the effects they would have. Well, they found, I think it was like I don't know the percentage. I can't remember. I should find an article and link it in the notes. But they found that some women were having, they were being diagnosed with cancer, with different cancers, breast cancer, female cancers. And so one of the things that came out of that study was people said, oh, if you take hormones, you're going to get cancer. So this news thing I saw just within the last few days, she's like, people literally took their hormone replacements and threw them in the garbage, because it was like, like nobody wants to hear you can get cancer from this thing, right?
Right.
So they've just done another study. There's been a whole lot of controversy about it because that particular study didn't account for age, which age is actually the most the most important factor, or the most common factor in female cancers, is age.
Right.
So they didn't can't call for that. They didn't decipher between hormone identical or bioidentical and regular hormones. But in this article, they said we've done this other one and we've confirmed what doctors have kind of said up until now, and maybe other studies have done it, but that really regulating our hormones, getting ourselves, because if our body has worked a certain way for years and decades, and then all of a sudden the whole chemical changes, there's going to be problems. Right? That just can't that doesn't make sense for it to all be just the same. It's not. And so
Right.
they found that they can prevent heart diseases, a lot of different kind of cancers by getting this, by getting your hormones in check, keeping them in within a bound that your body are meant to run on, that we as women are meant to run on. And we don't have to take them forever, but they're finding that maybe they're going to start actually having people take them for the rest of their lives, women. So we'll see how more studies happen, but it was just something that was eye-opening to me to realize that, yeah, there was no one talking about it. And if it was talked about, it was kind of embarrassed. It was kind of
Yeah.
shameful. I saw Halle Berry is working with on some senators and congressmen on both sides of the aisle to come up with legislation that helps educate for menopause because she kind of
That's
went
so
through the
good.
same thing as us. It was like, wait, what? I mean, I had no idea that women suffered for 10 years, up to
Yeah.
10 years. That's a lot of suffering. Like that's a lot of sleepless nights. That's a lot of hot flashes. That's a lot of achiness.
That's a lot of husbands hiding because they're scared of you. Like,
Yes.
I
A
don't
lot of
know.
those unchecked those emotions that are just big because you're feeling it, right?
Oh yeah.
So isn't that crazy? I just thought we're in 2024 and we're starting to think about maybe, because a decade of your life is a big chunk of your life that we have no understanding about, or it's just different for different people, or just we don't know what the normal is. Everyone
Well,
is
and I
just
don't
on their own.
evolutionary, I guess I don't understand how kind of things shift or happen, but you think about 100 years ago, people were done having kids in their 30s, right? I mean, sometimes they would be in their 40s. So the slowing down at 50, like, yeah, you didn't have little kids at home anymore. I mean, sometimes people are having their first babies in their 40s. So to say
Yeah,
that at 45, they're going to have to start going through perimenopause and then slowing down and not sleeping, like that
yeah,
just doesn't work for us anymore.
right, right. And you bring up an important point because I had to learn this in the last year and a half. I mean, I'd heard it, but it just didn't sink in that perimenopause exists until your periods completely stop. And
Okay.
so all certain everything can happen. And when I went to the doctor and they took my blood work, they said you literally have zero progesterone in your body. Zero. And
I
I
don't know
didn't
how
know
you
that.
weren't I don't know how you weren't living on the streets because when my progesterone's low, yeah, it's not great.
Exhaustion, right? I know. I was like, oh my gosh. So so they have a number, they can tell I'm not in menopause because I had an ablation. So I haven't had periods for years, which is like heavenly. But all of
Hmm.
a sudden now it's kind of like, now I don't know where I'm at, right? I don't know what the deal is. So they can look at a number and they can tell I'm not in menopause yet. She keeps saying we're going to watch this number and we can tell when you're actually in menopause. But this perimenopause is for sure happening and it can start off and change, things can change. It's kind of crazy. It's
It's
kind
a
of
roller
crazy.
coaster. Well, and did you find this in your research that menopause is actually 1 day?
No, I didn't hear that.
Someone said it's like 1 year after your period. So after you stop a period, 1 year after that, that's menopause. It's 1 day. And then after that, you're postmenopausal. We might not
Oh,
want to include this on there, but I thought that was fascinating to me. It's 1 day.
yeah, interesting. Yeah, so that's just kind of a marker in time, I guess, because it just says,
Hmm.
okay, now you're done. Okay, that makes sense. I guess that makes sense. Isn't this crazy? We don't even know the
We don't know.
vocabulary, and it's our own
Mm-mm.
body. Like
I know.
who I am. I should know this. And my kids should know it. My people should know it, not
Yeah, we
just
should
me.
know it well enough to teach the next generation, and we don't.
Right, 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 right. So yeah, just some love to all the mom bods that are 40 and above. And
Even 35, I feel
yeah,
like some starts.
I think you're right. Just have some love for yourself. Get yourself educated, listen to your intuition, really, really get clear on what is best for you because you're your own best advocate, sadly, and good, in a good way, I guess.
Mhm.
But
I
but
think one
yeah,
of the points I wanted to make too was like, be willing to talk about it because I overshare on a regular basis. I get it. Like it's a blessing and a curse. But I have found answers by doing that, by like saying something that I'm experiencing. Like it may not be this pretty tied up in a bow box of the issue that I'm dealing with, but a lot of times that has opened up someone to say, you know what? I found somebody that can help you with that. It's happened more than
Mm,
once. So I say, talk about it. Let's be open.
yeah.
There's what, 50% of the population is women. Like
Yeah.
there's some
Yeah.
conversations to be had.
Right. And if we're uncomfortable talking about our own bodies, I don't care what part of our body, you know what I mean? That's just something to note,
Yeah.
because this body is created to do a certain thing and be a certain way. There's no mistakes. I've repeated this a million times. My mom would tell me, you know, the devil didn't make that part of your body, that part of your body. But, the devil didn't make it. Like it's not like it, but yet throughout history and sadly even in modern times, the woman's body is to be shameful or
Hidden.
hidden, yes, or yeah, it's just it's sad.
Very sad.
It's so sad. So one thing I just wanted to, while we're ending this point, are about menopause is there's I think I've quoted her a few times, Hillary McBride on the podcast, but she had this this post on Instagram. So go follow her, Hillary McBride. Um, and it just was so meaningful to me. She says, we have taught, so this was what the thing said, we have been taught to call a peri or menopausal body an unruly body, a body that betrays, when really she is a resistor, a disruptor, a prophet, nature's defiance of the cultural myths and keep our fullness and wildness constrained. So she says, she goes on in the comment to say, because we are our bodies, when our bodies change, our experience of being in the world changes. And there is a parallel to the way the aging bodies shapes the aging, changing self. The versions of oneself that were necessary to be who others wanted you to be were shed in favor of a more expanded, robust, rewilded body/self. Lines in the skin, sprouting hair, redistribution of fat, soft bodies, all ways of saying, I'm a pillar. I know things. I have lived. I won't be limited to the smaller versions of myself that you've asked me to be. She says that her research shows that what happens for many women when they are allowed the space and connection with others to see this transition as something other than a problem, a time when they are becoming, when they have inner and relational and informational maps for how to negotiate the change in a way that does not require them to disconnect from themselves further. This is that they can see that they are changing what they are changing into, then they can become even more embodied, more wise, more free versions of themselves. The changing and aging body is not a problem to be solved. It is a portal, a truth teller, a resource, a resistance. I just think, dang, it's true. Your body, as we move, I know that for me, my body is telling me what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do a lot of the times. It's here's what's happening.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
instead of resisting that, that would be really interesting if I listened, you know, instead to what my body is trying to teach me, you know,
Yeah. I'm gonna have to ponder on that. There's a
right?
lot of that. Yeah.
There's a lot. And so I'll try and put that link in the notes because it was a lot to hear. But I love the way she's like, what if we, it's just like, what if we thought of this as differently? What if this was a celebratory time? I know that there's lots of people that have like red parties or period parties when their girls start their period. They kind of,
That's
have this
awesome.
rite of passage.
Yeah.
I know, right? I so great. Like what if we did the same things for ourselves? Like what if we, because even in my own self, I can recognize that if I'm like, yeah, I might be going through perimenopause. So, like you're like, it's like you're just like, it's not
That's
something you're
exactly what
like,
we did
woo,
when we started our period. That's exactly
right?
what we did. I mean, back, that's how I was. It's like,
Oh
oh my
yeah,
gosh, it's horrible. I can't believe it.
yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
it's not.
I didn't tell anybody for years. None of my friends knew. Like, no, it was
Really?
something to be hid. And yeah,
Wow.
those are probably my most desperate prayers in my life was when I was having my period and I was at school and you're so nervous.
Oh yeah. Like white jeans are out of the question for the rest of my life.
Right. We would have this thing be like, you'd go up to your friend, you'd be like, will you watch me? And that meant you would walk in front
Mhm.
and the other person would look, and then you're like, yeah, you're good. Like
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
sad that it
It
was
is.
just, yeah,
Yeah, you're right. We should celebrate this. And I hope we're moving towards that.
yeah, yeah. And this year, 2024, I'm turning
Woo!
50, which is exciting. Like I'm working on letting that be exciting.
Good.
I'm
It
really
is.
focusing on it. It is. It's a big deal. And um, but I've said this before, but I remember sitting there looking in the mirror once, and thinking, I was trying to doing my makeup, doing all these things. It was like, what I'm trying to do? There's the worst thing I could do is look 50. Like I don't want to look 50. And yet I'm like, but I'm 50. And I thought, and it was just kind of this moment of like compassion for myself, because it was like, wow, I can feel that there's a lot of pressure to not look 50, even though I'm 50, not look my age, like if I'm 80, looking 50 is going to be fantastic, right? So what's the difference? You know what I mean?
I,
It's like, it's just our own constructs.
but yeah, you're right. It's also subjective because I've been looking at prom photos like from the 80s. They look like they're 45. And so my perceptions have shifted, right? You've seen those clips of
Right.
like Steve Martin and I think it's Diane Keaton, and they were in their 40s and they look like they're in their 60s, like to me right
Yeah.
now. And so I think you're right. I think recognizing that, like, no, you're not 17.
Mhm.
Maybe you shouldn't share genes with your daughter. You can. I'm fine with that. But also stepping into that of like, hey, this is who I am right now, and I'm gonna play up those features that I love about myself. And I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And going, even moving on to just the body, or itself, and our mom bods. I remember I had my little son. I think he was like 6 years old, and he was tall. He's still tall and thin, just thin. Like he just has no emotional attachment to food. Like it's a chore. Food, dinner is a food is a chore. I mean, a gift in this day and age, but not in any other, right? Like
Sure. You wouldn't have
in any
survived
other,
very long, probably.
right. So it's subjective, right? But I was pulling him out of the tub and helping him get out of the tub one day. And I looked at his body, and he has this like flat, perfectly flat tummy, and like his little bony hips because he's just little. And I was like, that's the body I think I should have. Like I was just like, oh my gosh, I am looking to have a 6-year-old male body, like this skinny little thing. And I was just like, wow, eye opener. I gotta I gotta do some work about that, because it was like, first of all, talking about mom bods. I remember did you ever watch John and Kate plus eight?
Yeah.
Okay, so at one point, I think it was in one of the early shows before she got her tummy tuck, she like showed you her like stretched skin.
Oh
And
yeah.
I watched that and I was like, that's really close to the way I did not have 6 babies at once, but I'm telling you, my that area of my body, my belly, my baby pooch is like a whole different a whole different species from what I wanted it to be, if nothing else,
A
right?
6-year
Like,
old boy, yes.
right. Totally different than that 6-year-old boy. Like it's wrinkly, it's smushy, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I was trying to, and there's no way I could have, I mean, maybe with a lot of work, maybe with a lot of surgery, maybe I
Hmm.
could have that body, but it was like, it was just, for me, it was that tummy. I was just like, wow, I need to rethink the expectation I have a little bit. It's just kind of that moment where you went, bing, I gotta, I gotta change that in myself. I gotta think differently a
I
little bit.
know. Like I remember joking as a younger person about like Renaissance photos, where it's like the women are like laying naked in their fat rolls and like that was beauty, right? And I'm like, I was born in the wrong time, like I have
Yes.
that kind of body, not the People magazine kind of body or whatever. And I wonder if we could reframe that. Like, I've tried to reframe my age as far as like I have earned every single year. I have earned this. Like, I am proud of how
Right.
old I am. I've earned it. And you earned that stomach. Like, you
Yeah,
couldn't have gotten it any other way. Like,
that's true. It's pride.
I
That's
think it's so
that's
cool.
gold. You're right.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you earned that. That and I love that. I love that idea. Yeah, I think that's a good a good practice to, because you might have to practice having that
Yes.
feeling. You know what I mean? But make it a practice, and then it will become a little more uh true. It'll feel more true in your body as we practice, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
at first it might not, right? At first it might
No,
not.
especially when it's different than you've ever had before. It's a big change.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, so mom bods, I for those I would say, in different time periods of time, right? Like when you're in your 20s, I mean, that's the sad thing. In my 20s, did I think, oh, I'm rocking it? Yeah, like, no. When I was a teenager, did I think this is the best, I'm so hot? No.
That's
It's right. So I have to do that forward. So like my 80-year-old self is going to be like, oh my gosh, when I was 50, I was like a sexy hot thing. So I'm going to borrow from that 80-year-old if I have to, until it becomes okay for myself. Because I know, like you say, um, in that hoarder, when I show up and I take care of myself, it it mirrors out to other people, right? They will reflect that to me.
feel it. I can feel it.
Hmm.
Along with that, I was watching this something on social media and it was talking about, well, it asked a question to women and said, if you could change anything about your body, one thing about your body, what would you change? And the women were like, oh, like, where do I start? Like, there's so many things. And so then they stopped and they went and asked little kids under 12, like, what would you change about your body? And the one stopped. She's like, I think I would like a unicorn horn. And then was like, you know what? I'd really like a mermaid tail. And then one little girl, she was like, and she was a little chubby, right?
Yeah,
And not bad, but just, and she was like, you know
right.
what? I would change anything. I love my body.
Mm,
I'm like, yeah, I want to reclaim that too. I want to reclaim
right.
on both sides of that. Just like, I can't think of anything to change. And I asked my 10-year-old, I said, what would you change? And she said, I think I would make it so I don't have a period. She's really concerned about that, But it was like nothing physical. Even, I mean, that's kind of
Mm,
physical, but didn't
right.
cross her, really think about it.
Totally. Isn't that the truth that it, and the thing is if like, if I said, I just love everything about my body, if I said it like authentically and like just about me, I don't know, would that bother you? Would that be like disruptive to you? I mean,
It could,
like,
honestly, if I'm being honest.
right. But well, what I'm saying is like, if that is true, is that my work to do or your work to do?
Oh
You
yeah,
know what
it's
I
mine.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we all have that work. I feel like that, I don't know, let's find a woman that just says, yeah, everything's great. I don't, because there's always a but, like if I do this, then I do, or I shouldn't have eaten that or else, it's
Yeah.
like, so we're just so hard on ourselves, we're so hard on ourselves. I want to put in the notes too. There was like a really great Instagram post that I came across this week that was also, it was this, I think it was a young mom, and she was just kind of saying, you, you, it was kind of like, you're not going to get your body back. Everybody's like, I got to get my body back, and it's like, you're not. And that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, you're a different person. You've changed, and to really kind of grieve that if that's what you need to do. But there's also, there's room for celebration too, that we as women have a lot of power to change that,
Yeah.
to work,
Got a
to
lot of
support,
influence.
right, to
A
support
lot of
each
influence.
other. Yeah. In that. So I challenge all of us to kind of, practice for ourselves, connecting with and listening to that body of ours and learning to love it a little bit more, because then we can help other, then if a lot of us do it, then it becomes okay to do, and then it's so much easier for the rest of us if it's like, oh, we can do that. Okay. You know,
Yeah. That's a great challenge. That's a challenge accepted. I like it.
Yeah. And it's a practice, like we say. So
Yes. Yes.
one of the best, of course, we one of the ways to practice feeling good, is the library, the new apps out. And I just wanted to, kind of highlight some of the videos that are in the library that have to do with this topic. So we have like a really good podcast interview that talks about moms, and it's called Mom Pods, and she's a amazing lady out of Illinois that puts these groups together for young moms. That's just kind of like an online support group, and it's so inexpensive and so supportive for moms to understand. Like you said earlier, if you say something out loud and then other people are like, yeah, me too. Yeah, oh yeah, well, here's what I did. And it's like just so supportive to have someone else hear you and then you to hear other people's perspectives. So grab that, watch that. Also, I thought about, if you do have young kids too, that there's a children's corner and it's mostly for super young kids, but I'm telling you, my little grandbaby watches the little videos for young kids every single day.
He
He
does.
loves it. He loves it. It makes me so happy that as soon as he hears the music, he'll just sit and he will watch that whole video, and I can even turn it over again and watch it again and he'll just watch. Like it's just because it speaks to them, I guess. So I'm super proud. And then the last thing that I would just say that I thought about in the library is there's a video it's called Supporting the Physical Body. That's the channel. And there's one in there called the Number One Diet Plan. And it's a little bit of a trick because, and when we were recording, and she started to record, it was Jenny Dees who was recording. And, at first I was a little, like concerned what she was going to say. But what I really, really appreciated about what she said is like the number one diet for you is the diet that you can do. You know what I mean? Like the diet that you can do. And she challenged, she's like, maybe you could say, I'm going to add a little more, organic to my diet, or I'm going to add a little more protein to my diet. But it's an idea of like, what can I do? Not what should you do or what you must do, but that feeling that's like, oh, I can totally do that. Like that's how we get, that's the way I feel like you change your body, if you want to change it, is just to do what you can do. Because if the worst thing you could do is fight against what your body is calling out for, you know.
But
If you're
we are not taught to do that very well, I don't think.
I don't think so either, like I mean, especially women, because we go against ourselves so much. I mean, it's like I was listening to this we were listening to this like marriage book a while back, and he just kind of talked about the idea that this woman was like, hey, are you thirsty? Maybe, maybe do you want to get a drink? And he's like, no. And his husband's like, no, I'm good. And then she sits there and it's all sad because what did she mean? She meant, I
Like,
want a drink,
yeah.
and it kind of like called me out a little bit, and I think about that a lot
Oh,
because, right.
oh yeah.
Yeah, we do that. And is that's not kind to ourselves, and it's not kind to those around us if we have these needs and we're not asking for those needs to be met.
So
Yeah. So,
really smart. That's smart. So, were there any other videos on the Wholeness Network that
well, there's plenty that are supportive for women, I think. There's a whole uh video about surviving domestic abuse, that was specifically, well, there's a man on the panel actually, but um, that's something that is supportive to some, we're kind of just talking about women right now, but we want more. We need to get some more things on there that speak, especially I think to maybe the feelings that women have as their bodies are changing while having kids, in the middle of kids and toward the end of kids, right? There's different stages. It's really an spoken topic, like we've said before.
I think when you're talking about the Wholeness Network, there are so many gurus on there, right? People that have walked the path before. Sometimes I call them my pioneers or experts, teachers, whatever you want to call them. I think you need to really work at finding those and see, like, being willing to pivot when they don't fit you anymore.
Yes.
I have found a lot of gurus over my life, and I've had to move on to other ones. And I don't know if my life has shifted, their life has shifted. I'm not really sure, but there are people that have answers, or at least part of an answer for you by, just, I don't even know how to say it in a good way, but just experimenting with different people and seeing if they fit. Like, one person that comes to mind is Dr. Marie Claire Haver. Do you know who she is?
No, I want to know
She's
more.
a doctor she just actually wrote a book about menopause, but she's the one that talks about hormone replacement therapy and will tell you how to talk to your doctor about what you need. And if they refuse, she's like, go find another one. And everything she does follows up with the medical journal. So, and I not necessarily feel like I have to have a backup all the time, because sometimes, like you said, your intuition tells you like, no, I don't, I need something more. But I guess your intuition can be your guru too, can't it?
100%. I love what you're saying because it's true. I think too, we need to give women, well, everybody, but women especially, permission to 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 listen to the other person and to themselves. Like in my own practice, it kind of stopped me a little bit because I'm like, I don't want people defaulting their decisions over to me, because people were willing to do that a lot of the time. And I think I am not better for you than you are for you. I'm
Right.
not. And so, and sometimes, I go to conferences and I would just get like the willies because people are like just writing down everything. And it's like, but you got to see how that fits for you. You got to see how that's true for you. And then, and be willing to say that doesn't work for me. That doesn't mean it can't work for someone else. It's fine. You're not being mean, right? We don't want to be
Right.
mean. The worst
Right.
thing you want to do is be mean. But it's like you're not being mean. You're just, oh, I really appreciate, what you've
Well,
taught
that
me and
information
move on.
helped you know it wasn't for you. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Right. Right. Love on you for sharing your stuff, but like
Hmm.
really get clear on what is right for you. And then, like you say, and then you can change your mind. You can even
Yeah.
change your mind again. Things happen in your life that kind of change your perspective. And so there might be someone different that you need to listen to or people that you need to let go of.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I love those ideas.
When most people are asked what they want, they will answer, I want to be happy. But happy takes practice. And that's what the Wholeness Library is all about. So check it out free at thewholenessnetwork.com.